Good afternoon, class. You have survived your first week of web development, so it's time to stop and review quickly and take a look at what's coming up. So week 2, we're going to be tackling the topic of advanced JavaScript. So ideally, you've spent some time learning a little bit of JavaScript before this point. We're going to really start diving in this week. So we have AJAX, which is how we can make HTTP requests directly from JavaScript executing on a page. We're going to talk about the asynchronous nature of JavaScript. JavaScript is, by design, one of the most asynchronous languages you'll probably end up working with. So we're going to talk very much about how asynchronously works with different approaches. We're going to discuss them in multiple ways. And then we're going to focus on how that's done in JavaScript and some of the structures that we use to allow that asynchronicity to callbacks, promises, the async and await keyword, which you may recognize from C#. So this is a very similar to C#, but it's built on promises, which are backs. So we kind of go through those. And then we're going to take a first look at Node, which is JavaScript that actually runs on a server or any PC, really, whatever device you have. It actually has a platform, just about everything we run on. And Node is a little interesting because it's not limited to a browser. Now it can interact with the file system, it can talk to the operating system, so all those things you can do in other programming languages now become possible with JavaScript. Whereas if working in the browser, JavaScript that you work with is intentionally limited in its ability to do things. There are some things it just cannot do. File system, interact with the operating system, run system commands, things like that because of security concerns. So it is tightly sandboxed in the browser. Node actually unleashes it in a way that we can use it to do interesting things. And of course, we have next milestone. Week 1, of course, we were primarily just looking at the technologies, viewing HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and HTTP is awaiting. So I'll start it. A couple things I do want to address after having seen everybody's module 1 come through. There were a few things we want to look at. One is I really do want you guys to take advantage of the W3C markup service. I will be putting your code through this just to make sure that it's valid and sort of small to large things that people missed, which may surprise you. Go through the comments in your Canvas page. It may surprise you because the browser will often display a page with no problem, even though it's actually full of errors. And that's because browsers are meant to be giving and to be able to take web pages that are being written by amateurs and try to get them to show up as they're kind of expected to be. As a computer scientist, we expect a higher standard from you. We want you to actually write valid JavaScript. Now, if you try to do this validate by URI and put in your Codio box URI, that won't work. And the reason it won't work is the Codio box actually is behind a login wall. So when you log into assignments and actually do your assignments, it's setting a cookie so that anytime you visit anything serving, you're actually passing through a proxy server, which sits between the server that you're running, in this case, the static server, and Codio's hosts platform itself and your PC. So a little bit of a different arrangement, and you can't use this validate by URI because the W3C service tries to talk directly to the server running on Codio, and it is not authenticated through that proxy server, so it just can't do it. So you either have to validate by file upload, so you can download your HTML files from the Codio box and upload here, or you can validate by direct input, so just copy and paste the HTML. This is probably the easiest way of just copy it right Codio and paste it in there. Run the check button. When you do that, it's going to review your code. It's going to tell you if there's any problems. It will give you both warnings and errors. Errors obviously are more severe, but actually I don't want to see warnings either. So I didn't count off for warnings this time. In the next few assignments, I will start counting off as well. So just paste it in here, make sure that you have that fixed and don't have any validation errors. If you do have validation errors and you don't know what those are, you don't understand what it's trying to tell you, please go ahead and ask in the Discord channel. I'll be happy to explain what's going on. There are a few things in my notes too that have slowly become less common. For example, now it starts warning if it's a script tag. And you say the type is text JavaScript. The source, whatever that might be, it will actually now complain and say that the type doesn't need to be specified. So and I know in my examples I put it in there because that's how I learned. Feel free to just take that out. But I do want you to at least do a pass through here. If any concerns are coming. Another question that came up early in the week, which I'd like to address kind of quickly, this idea of these pages and the fact that this is actually being cached. So if I update this textbook and you access the textbook through Canvas, you won't get that update if you've already been to the page. And that's because it's actually caching what this page looks like. There are a couple of ways around that. If you hold Control and click this refresh button, that is a hard refresh, which will page, or you can clear your cache, which is a pain in the rear. But if you want to see why this is actually happening, we inspect an element on the page and then jump to our network tab. This is actually telling us everything that is coming across the network. It's kind of fun to take a look at. So when we reload a Canvas page, notice we made 109 requests. 109 requests against the server. That's how much stuff is embedded in Canvas, which is actually kind of ridiculous. They really could shave this down significantly. But if we go ahead and kind of walk through those files, notice we have a lot of JavaScript files because their JavaScript is compressed and split into different modules, so it'll load faster. And we're really interested in HTML file for this page. And what's interesting about this, let's go ahead and take a look at the source page too. Get down in here, see building, here's all our stuff, the dashboard. It's a pretty big page with a lot of different HTML pieces in it. And eventually, where in here should be the actual content. Here's div ID, content main, role main. We're doing a wiki page show. And notice that there is not actually anything in the page itself. So actually this whole content is being loaded asynchronously through JavaScript, and so it's not part of the source code. When we first visit this page, we'll inspect it and look at the DOM, have our page title. So this is the content that was empty before this div. You can see it started inspecting all of this stuff, which is our web page. And get down into this paragraph tag, notice that this is an iframe. This piece is actually embedded from another website. This textbooks.cs.ksu/cs526, and then the particular section we're looking at is Appendix C, and Section 10, and JSON section. So we could actually just go and directly at the textbook site. So this is that. And actually, if the browser was just a little bit bigger, oh, no, if my browser was a little bit bigger, this is the embed version. If I take off the embed, this is the full textbook. You can see we have chapters. If you've been struggling with hypertext, markup language, HTML, CSS, or JavaScript, you have appendices that cover those. That would be basically the textual material from the course before this one. So you can go ahead and dig through those if you have questions or are stuck on some of that. But kind of the takeaway I want you to know, I have this textbook. It is posted on this textbooks.cs.ksu website along with all my textbooks. And then when I put it in Canvas, I use an iframe and embed it in Canvas. You might be wondering why I do that. Well, at the end of the semester, Canvas course goes away. You no longer have access to it. I don't like it. I want you to be able to access that textbook as long as you need to. So I post it somewhere publicly where you can time. All of my textbooks that are up here, they're released under the Commons, attribution, and share alike. So you can go ahead and print it off, have a copy, save a copy. Just make sure that you say this was authored by Bean, because I put a lot of work into it. And you can even reuse it and present it and use it elsewhere if you go on to teach or something like that, and you want to use my. So that's kind of why I embed it there. If we jump back to our network tab, we know that that page is a HTML document, so we can find the documents here. They're being loaded. It's fluid. Sort this. Here's our documents. This is the actual one we're looking at. Embed.html is the document we're taking a look at. Notice that here in its size, we've got this 200 status code, but here in the size, it's served from the disk cache. So this has actually been stored on our local cache rather than going back and reloading the page and actually fetching it from the server, the textbook server. It's actually just using an in-memory copy. Right click, say reload frame, that should force it to load, or again, like I said, hard refresh. That should reload everything. We should end up with a fetch bed. See, actually, we have multiple calls to it coming back with 200, and this was actually fetched. Actually, did go out to the server and grab that. Also, you might notice this diagram shows us kind of how long it took for each request to finish, and this is very common in a modern web app. We actually are loading and adding things to the page constantly over a period of potentially several thousand milliseconds, so a couple seconds. Ideally, you want your load times to be seconds. Any longer than that, you're probably going to start losing. Stick around and wait to load. I just wanted to give you a little bit of background there, some idea of what resources you can get to, and that. Now, the other thing I do want to address, you've been through 1 week now, so you know kind of what the pace of the course is going to be. You have a feel for the kinds of things I'm going to be asking you to do. It is a summer course. It moves a lot faster, and we have a lot of content we're covering in a short time. If you feel that this is maybe not the best situation, not the best speed, not the best way of encountering the material for you, tomorrow, the 15th, is the last day to drop an 8-week summer course. What this is, with a 100% refund. I'm not trying to push you out of the class, but I want you to know up front that that date comes really fast. So if after a week you're like, this is too much, there's just no way I can spend that much time, then I want you to be warned that that's the time to actually think potentially dropping the course if you want to go back. If you want to hang on for a little while longer, obviously there's the 50% refund date is a bit further out. And if you think you're doing fine, then don't worry about it. But I just don't want you coming in blind and not realizing that it's not going to be a month in like it is with your regular semester courses. So just to make sure that you're on top of things. All right. Finally, if you have any questions at any point this semester, please don't be afraid to ask on Discord. If you'd like to talk to me directly, if you want to do a Zoom meeting, just hit me on Discord. For that matter, if you ask a question on Discord and it's one that I really either can't answer without taking a look at your code, or I want to talk you through, I will suggest that we meet. Just a link there. I find that works really well for the style of course where we are very asynchronous and you may be tackling things at different times of the day rather than having a set office hours that maybe you just can't attend because of your summer schedule, working part-time, maybe of course. So I like to remain flexible like that. It's not that I don't want to meet with you. I'm very happy to, but I don't want to pin you down to a schedule that just doesn't work. So please don't hesitate to ask if you find yourself stuck or struggling. Put it out there. At the same time, anything you ask on Discord, that's an opportunity, public classroom, it's an opportunity for all your classmates to jump in and answer your questions. And as we all know in programming, there are times where you may do something that you just can't see your way through it, and somebody else will look at it and within 2 seconds be like, oh, you need to do this. And then you're like, oh, how did I not see that? There are no dumb questions. There are things we get stuck on that maybe in retrospect we're like, how did I ever get stuck on that? That happens even to us programmers who've been doing this for but that's just part of being human. So please don't be afraid to ask. There's nothing wrong. We're all here to help each other through this experience, make everything out of this. All right, so I hope you had a good week, and I look forward to seeing you for the rest of the short summer semester. Enjoy the weather we've been having.